And it is Steampunk Stories at amberstreet.com. And this is my Simon Pegg rant. Simon Pegg, who has recently become famous, well, he was already famous for Shaun of the Dead. He's now known as portraying Scotty, which I always disagreed with. To me, he was kind of typecasted as a comedian. Shaun of the Dead character. I loved Shaun of the Dead. He was great in Shaun of the Dead, but he is terrible, and I mean terrible, portraying Scotty. Betrays Scotty in this goofy way. Scotty, even though comedians love to make fun of him, he was always a serious character, and Simon Pegg's portrayal of him makes him kind of a joke. It makes the new Star Trek movies kind of a parody of themselves. Just that alone, let alone all the other things that I find wrong with the last two movies. But now apparently he's getting involved in script writing for Star Trek 3, and he didn't like the movie studios, and he didn't like the original script. I was linked to an article thanks to my friend Daniel, who's a hardcore Star Trek fan. Also guest on the Real Whovians cast. It's always very confusing because it's a podcast, but it's called the Real Whovians cast, and you automatically think, well, it's a podcast, so it should be called the Real Whovians podcast, but it's kind of a confusing title. But anyway, the Real Whovians cast, Daniel from that, which I am also a guest from time to time on that show. He linked to the article with Simon Pegg, said that he wants to make Star Trek 3 less Trekkie. And that's already the problem with the first two films. I mean, their rationale is Star Trek Into Darkness only made $500 million, and the new Avengers has already made like $1.5 billion. So they feel that that's $1 billion more that they could be getting. But Star Trek has always been a niche market. It's better suited towards television. This is the reason why it's better suited towards television. Star Trek was never Star Wars. It's not meant to be a movie like Avengers. It's not an action film. The movie is intellectual entertainment, and it's more than just entertainment to me and millions of other Star Trek fans. It is a blueprint for the future if we got our shit together and stopped messing up. What wonderful things we could have in the future. But that's not the way Simon Pegg sees it. He sees it as, he needs to dumb it down as an action movie, make it more inclusive for everybody. But nerds have won the culture wars. I mean, you see people talking about, even very attractive models on YouTube talking about how, I'm such a geek, I'm such a nerd, and so this wouldn't have been 20, even 15 years ago. You would have never heard models talk about how I'm such a geek, how I'm such a nerd, how I love to play video games, I love this comic book, I love this movie, this superhero movie, etc., etc. So people are ready to embrace the ideals of Star Trek, and I don't think you have to mess with Star Trek and dumb it down anymore. It's already dumbed down enough. I only hope that Simon Pegg's meddling with Star Trek 3's script, because he's apparently helping with the rewrite. I only hope that it causes the movie to bomb, and that Star Trek goes on hiatus as far as movie making, and maybe the fans could get a Kickstarter together or some kind of crowdfunding project together and buy the rights back to Star Trek, and then we could have Star Trek made by fans for fans. There was a fan who penned many of the scripts for Season 4 of Enterprise, and they were actually quite good. I disagree with Simon Pegg, and I disagree with several other people who think that Star Trek is too Trekkie. If you dumb it down anymore and making it into a thriller action film, it's not going to be Star Trek. It's just going to be Star Trek only in name, and it really misses the point Star Trek, they really need to bring back another television show, stop focusing on movies. It always did better on television than it did in the theater. I mean, it did fairly well in the theater, but it's always had its own moderate-sized niche market. It's never been on the same level as Star Wars. Star Wars has a more broad, wide appeal, but Star Wars has fantasy as well as sci-fi elements to it, and I think that's why it has a broader appeal. But the market has changed, with successive movies like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and success with all these superhero films. I think people are ready for more cerebral, more nerdy stuff. Enough of this crap, and if it were up to me, Simon Pegg would be fired, and he wouldn't even be. We would return to the Star Trek Prime universe, and there would be none of this crap about making it less Trekky. That's to me idiotic, and it pisses me off. And so anyway, this is Steampunk Star Raisin out. You have a nice day, and I will see you 25 billion years. I will.